Welcome to the Probate Podcast, where we talk about all the things you didn't know you need to know about probate. My name is Sherri Lund, and I'm so glad that you're here. I want you to understand the process and to know what to expect because it's going to make things easier and it's going to save you money. And I'm here to show you how.
I am really excited to be here, Sherri. Thank you so much for having me. For those who don't know me, I am a television show host of Power CEOs, The Truth Behind the Business, an entrepreneur, investor, and a business strategist. And I'm really excited to have been invited to interview you today, Sherri, because what you are doing, this podcast, for example, is a gap and you're providing information that we so much need. You are an amazing human being and you saw a gap in the whole probate system and process, and you have decided to move in and fill that gap for people, not the legal side of it, but that personal, the human side of it. Can you tell me a little bit about how that came to be?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I came into it by accident. I was at a young man's house. He was going into foreclosure and he invited me over to talk about what his options were. And when I got there, I found out that he had inherited this house from his parents. His dad had passed away 2 years before, his mom a year before that. And the day after his dad died, he found out he was on mental disability. And so I looked around his house and there were boxes everywhere, but also silk flowers and teapots and cats and dogs and all kinds of stuff. And his house was going to be auctioned in 11 days. That was on a Thursday. I immediately, because of my past experiences, started thinking about this young man. He's in his early 30s, had never bought a house before. He did not have any clue what train was coming in his direction. And he really believed that the neighbor down the street would buy his house at top dollar, no questions asked, and do it in 11 days. So in my mind, I was running a million miles an hour while I was trying to stay calm on the outside for his benefit because he said, I'm talking to you fine right now, but I might start showing symptoms of my diagnosis at any moment. My mind just began to wonder over the days that we worked with him, trying to come up with a solution. I started calling resources in our county, talked to social workers, talked to the title company, trying to figure out what resources are available. And that's when it became very clear how much I didn't know about this season, but also how few resources there really are. That's what opened the door for me.
And what I know to be true for you, Sherri, is that you are the go-to resource. You have a tremendous network of resources now, and it's really powerful. And I know you as a human being. You have a big heart. You really do have a gift for adding value to others. And you've so beautifully pulled together exactly those resources that you didn't have access to. And so, how did that process happen for you? Because a lot of us have an idea, or we see a need, or we see something that has to be filled. There's a gap somewhere, and we want to help, but 99% of us stop right there, and we are not able to close that gap and actually pull together the solution. But you did that. You pulled together the resources and you now have a solution. So, talk to me a little bit about your background or how you were able to take that concept, that idea, that emotion, that want to help and see the gap and then actually implement to fill the gap.
After this experience with this young man and calling all the people that I knew to call in the county and even outside of the county, it became really clear. And so after we went through that season with him, I started researching that idea of probate and who is in that. I kept thinking about the widow who has lost a spouse at 52 years or whatever, and she may not even know what her finances look like. And I thought about the mom that has young kids who was able to qualify for the mortgage that she has because of her husband's income. And now that that's gone, what is going to happen to her? And how are they supposed to make these big decisions while they're grieving? And I know because of my past experience, my training, that you can't make good decisions when you're under stress like that. It's impossible for your brain to think and make those good decisions. And nobody's talking about this stuff. So as a woman, as a spouse, as a mom, putting myself in that place and imagining myself in those shoes, where do you go? What book do you read? And there is none, or very, very few. So I just went forward and I said, this is an area that we have to start exposing it and talking about it. And I did the research. I found a nationwide group that I joined and became a part of. That's how I became certified as a probate expert. I struggle with that term because I don't think you could ever be an expert in probate. So I surround myself now with people that know a whole lot more than I do. And I learn from them and I learn from my clients, and I'm getting better every day.
I really love that you said that because I share that belief. The more we learn, the more we realize we don't know. And it's
Oh
kind of
my
that
God.
lifelong learner, but it's also an evolution. And when what you're dealing with is you're
Mhm.
dealing with grief and
Yeah.
people. And that's not something that you can just put in a one size fits all box and expect it to all automatically resolve because everybody's going to react the same way because everyone's process is different. Every family is different. Every
Yeah.
situation is different. You have pulled together the resources and talk to me about how you've started helping people in that practical side of probate. Like, how did you pull together the resources and now you're able to, be recognized and be that go-to person for the attorneys who are doing the legal side, from the financial advisor piece who are coming into the situation where the woman has no idea about the finances. How have you been able to create the environment where you can come in and be that resource?
Well, thanks, Jen. I appreciate your confidence. A lot of times I'm flying by the seat of my pants, honestly, because when I go into a conversation, I don't know what they're going to spring. I mean, every situation is different. Where they are emotionally is different. Where they are financially is different. Is there a will in place or not? That makes a huge difference. And so for me, first, it was an act of learning, what is probate? What is the legal process? And I had to get that under my belt. And then I became a real estate agent so that I could offer that service. Once people know, like, and trust me, and I have listened to their story and I have been into the property that we're talking about, it's a natural thing for me to be able to list their property and help them find another place to go to. It's one less new relationship that they have to invest energy and time on. They already know me. So if I can help them with that process, that makes it easier for them as well. And then it's just a matter of really being curious and hungry for more information that will help my clients wherever they are. So I intentionally look for those relationships that can help them down the road. And it's been a really fun process for me to go on. I used to be afraid of people, networking events and things like that. Handing out business cards, talking about myself was a big source of anxiety for me. But I do it because of the young mom with the young kids and the widow who doesn't know. So they motivate me to stretch and do more than I would ever do on my own.
That's awesome, Sherry. I really respect you for that. And I really appreciate what you're doing. And that leads me to the next question. And that is, death is a very challenging topic. And we've all known somebody or have lost somebody. And we've all experienced that overwhelm that happens during the grieving process. Everybody sort of pours in for a week or two after the event or the death occurs. And you're overwhelmed there because everybody's like, what can I do? And you have no idea. You really have no idea going through the
Right.
process. And then 2 weeks later, that dries up and it's like everyone else has moved on, but you, the person who's grieving, has not. And you're left with this huge mess and
Mhm.
you're overwhelmed, you're grieving, and you don't know where to start. And even worse, other people don't know how to approach you or what are the
Mhm.
words to say or how to do that. So, how do people reach you in that space so that they know, hey, this is when you call me and let me take over part of the process so you can go through the grieving and your process. Let me handle the mundane day to day sorting and sifting because we all know that's not something that's easy for anyone to do after they've lost a loved one.
I think we have to be really careful. I mean, even since I've stepped into this space, I've had several people that I know that have passed away, and some are really close. It does feel kind of funny to reach out, but because I am who I am, and that's so hard for me to say, but there are a lot of people out there that watch for death certificates. They read the probate notices and they do not have the best intentions. And so, one of the things that frustrates me in this industry is that there are people who don't really care and they're not so sympathetic and they're not empathetic or compassionate. And so they will just call or they will talk kind of rudely, I think, and not be sensitive about what might be happening on the other side of that door or the other side of that phone. I approach this very cautiously because I am aware of what might be happening on the other side. At the same time, I have a solution and I am here to really make a difference for them.
How does somebody like me go to someone who is in that process? They're
Yeah.
grieving. How do I introduce the topic of, hey, Sherry can help you, or this is something that's out there, this is a resource,
Mhm.
and let us take some of the burden off you because when you're grieving, you quite frankly don't know. You don't know what you
Right.
don't know. You're overwhelmed and you don't even know how to start.
Right. So when you're meeting with them, if you find out that someone has lost a loved one and you're sitting and listening to their story, be sensitive, number one, to where they're at. But then when the opportunity shows up in the conversation, just say, hey, this might not be a time for you right now, but here's the lady's name and number. And I would like for you to, when you can, reach out to her, tell her about this podcast, share my website with her. There's free resources on there that can help her from the very first week after someone passes away. Just start the conversation with her and she can reach out as she feels comfortable doing that. And along with that, I would say that you don't have to feel ready to start the probate process in order to start asking the questions. It's okay to call and have a free conversation with me about what do I do and what should I expect in the process and who do I even call about helping me through probate? What attorney do you recommend? We can have those conversations and you have time. You don't have to do this within the first month of someone passing away. But be sensitive to those conversations and then please interject that help is available and resources are available and share my name with them. I'd love that.
And so now I'm going to ask a different question because no one likes to talk about death. It's a morbid topic. We don't like to recognize that we one day might pass away. Guess what? The only two things that are inevitable in this life are death and taxes. So one day this will happen to us if it hasn't already. And so part of the planning process is having a will, having a trust, having your wishes known. But we already can't discuss that. People have such a hard time even thinking about that or getting to the point where they put a will in place. So, what are the common questions that people ask you about your business when, for example, you go into a networking meeting and you say this, like what comes up in that conversation? Like how do you break that ice over such a challenging topic?
Yeah, at these networking events, I can have somebody right next to me that's a party planner, and then I come along and talk about what I do, and yeah, it can change the mood in the room quite a bit. But it's awesome, and I usually hear 2 responses at least once a week. I hear somebody smile and nod, and then I will ask them, "Do you know what probate is?" And they'll say, "No, I really don't." And so that's surprising to me, number 1. So many people don't even know what it is. And then I will hear, I do know what it is, and I know I need a will, but I just haven't gotten around to it. But then I often hear, probably at least once a week, I wish I'd heard about you 6 months ago. Or, oh my gosh, your services are so important, and nobody in Houston is doing what you're doing. And so I'm talking as fast as I can, sharing as much as I can with people so that I could get the word out for both of those reasons.
And hence this podcast. So, talk to me about what prompted you to say, you know what, I'm going to make a podcast and I'm going to talk about these subjects, even though nobody wants to talk about them or do anything about them. What was it that lit in you that said, you know what, I'm going to do this? It doesn't matter how uncomfortable I am doing this because I know you and I know you are not about getting in front of a camera and
Yeah.
doing this. This is very off character, like outside of your comfort zone. So,
Yes.
how important is this message that you're like, I'm going to make a podcast about this and I'm going to make sure
Yeah.
this is happening?
Last summer, I was challenged by a coach to start putting videos out, and at the time I was still recovering from COVID. My energy was very low. I'd lost a ton of hair, all of that. I was embarrassed to be on the camera for multiple reasons. But I thought I'm going to accept the challenge because I've heard someone say that growth is at the edge of your comfort zone. And if I don't let people know how I can help them, they don't know that I'm here. So I have to get out there in order for people to know that I'm here. And so I accepted that challenge. And once a week for 14 weeks, I put out a little video, 2 or 3 minutes, Tuesday talks, just to get the conversation going about probate. What is probate? What do you expect? What do judges do? And all of the different things, just 14 little 2-minute clips. And I did that for a while and my energy was low, but they got me started. And then I thought, okay, now that I know some really qualified, empathetic professionals in our community, I want to promote them. And that was really what prompted me to bring resources to the community to educate them before they even step into the attorney's office. They can hear what they sound like, they can see their mannerisms. So that became a source of service for me, for the community, and also for the attorneys that I work with and other professionals. And I just kept pushing. I really had resistance about this podcast idea. Videos are one thing, but to me, to say I'm a podcaster is a totally different genre for me. But I accepted the challenge. So here we are, video and podcast. And I think it's going to be awesome. I think it's going to serve a real need. I'm convinced of that. And I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited for you because I know that it's hard to break into a market that nobody knows is there.
And
It's
nobody wants to talk about it.
and nobody wants to talk about. So it takes a special human being and an insane amount of courage to do what you're doing because you're educating on a topic that people want to ignore and pretend won't ever happen until all of a sudden someone passes away. They're the executor and no idea what they have to do and they're
Right.
overwhelmed. And then it's almost like it's too late because you
Yes.
don't have all the things in place.
Right.
So it's really, really powerful. I'm glad that you're doing this. And I'm going to ask you another question. And that's what do you wish people asked you or knew about what it is you do or probate or the non legal side of probate?
Well, because it's so varied, it's not a cookie cutter thing. And so it makes it difficult when somebody says, "What do you do?" It makes it difficult to answer. So I'll give you an example. I'll put a combination of clients together so that you can kind of get a feel of some of the practical things that might happen. So let's imagine that there's a woman, a daughter, who's inherited her dad's home. She's actually inherited several properties. We're just going to talk about the one in Harris County. So imagine multiple properties. That's a whole nother thing to talk about in and of itself. But the Harris County property, dad was a hoarder and she lives in Seattle and she's got all of this stuff down here to think about. But she's also got a career in Seattle. She's got a family. She's got responsibilities. It's a trek to get down here. And who knows how long she would need to be here. People do it, but not everybody's in a position when it comes up to be able to make that stuff happen. She doesn't know if the house is safe. She doesn't know if it's secure. She doesn't even know if the family member refuses to get out. She doesn't know how to get them out. She doesn't need all the stuff that's down here. There's a few special things that are important to her, but really to go through all that stuff just dredges up sad memories, which takes her down a rabbit trail and just to recover from all of that. It's not that she's denying what is happening down here. It's just that it bogs you down and you can get caught up in that well of grief. So for her to be able to call me, she may not know where the file is, just to continue with that scenario. She may not know who to call for an estate sale or who to call to even empty all the stuff out of the house. There's so many things. Should she repair the house and get more money for it? Should she rent it out as an investment property or should she sell it as is and cut her losses? And all of that information is uniquely specific to her. She's one of several siblings. So her decisions affect the asset of the property and all the things that are there. Are there collections, a gun collection, or jewelry or art that need to be appraised? Her decisions impact her, but they also impact everybody else that will benefit from the sale and the proceeds that come from this probate process. The longer she delays that, the more costly it is, the more opportunity for disgruntled relationships to come up and people say things they regret. Some relationships are severed during this time and they never reconcile. Maybe not all of that, but some of that can be avoided. And certainly the sooner the probate case is closed, the easier that can be. So those are just some of the ways, when it's freezing outside, the pipes can break. Who is checking on that? Who's mowing the grass? All of those things are practical things.
Holy cow, everything and then some that you can think about. And I just think about my own personal experiences and when we've experienced loss. And honestly, it has caused so many rifts in the family. So forget the grieving process. Then you're fighting over who's going to inherit what, even though it's clearly delineated in a will. Things go missing. Like it's just a whole mess. And you're able to just provide the resources, get everything cataloged, tallied, figure out what's donated, figure out what's going to estate sale, handle all of that because you've got a trusted book of contacts. And if you
Mhm.
don't have them, you have the people who have them. That's
Yes.
super fantastic. Let me ask you if someone is listening to this podcast and they're going through the process, maybe they're the executor, maybe they've lost somebody, maybe they didn't even have a will. And so they're just like, well, that's great, but so and so passed away. No will. What do we do now? How do I navigate the process? How can people who might be listening today reach out to you or feel comfortable to reach out to you? What is something that you would want to share with that person who might be going through the process and in that overwhelm and thinking, I just don't know. I don't know where to start.
Yeah, I would say a couple of things. One of the reasons people hesitate, I think, is they don't know what to do first, and then they don't know what to expect. So they're going to expect it to be costly or whatever. So they might resist it for that reason. I know of one person right now who is hesitating because she's embarrassed about what we might find in the property when we go in. And so I just want to say that I've been in this position that you're in 3 separate times. It's not easy to think about a stranger coming in and going through things that are personal belongings for someone that you care about or that you're responsible for. And so I approach this with respect and I approach it dignifying the things that we're going through. If part of your hesitation is I can't handle all of that, then I want you to put that aside and rest assured. And maybe that's where getting to know me, part of these podcasts, you will get to know me and what I stand for and what I believe in. Those will help you come to that decision. But these things that you need to do will not go away on your own. You'll either need to do them yourself or have other people do them, or you can have someone like me do them. So that's your choice there.
And Sherri, you're the non-legal probate concierge who has all the ability to handle everything and really take the stress, the additional stress and overwhelm away so that they can focus on their grief. But earlier you said something, and I want to kind of bring it back just because you were just talking about dignity and respect. This is completely the case. So many times we know we would be embarrassed that we're related to somebody, or heaven forbid they come into our home because it's a spouse of ours and they see something or whatever that might be. There's a lot of fears associated with that, but you are the utmost professional. And I know that you keep things confidential. You are the utmost professional when it comes to these things. And so what in your background gave you that skill set? Because any of us who have been through the process have gotten the calls, the lowballing on the property as soon as they know, the investors, the people who are hawking, trying to get something, having to deal with creditors sometimes or whatnot, not knowing what's real, the scam artists. There's a ton of scams associated with the death and probate. So how did you gain the skill sets to have that empathy and that professionalism that just sets you apart from anyone else who's in the space?
Well, my background is in human development, and Oregon State University, where I graduated, was at the forefront of bringing geriatrics into studies and into bachelor's degrees. And so, what they did when they established that new program is they said that people, regardless of what their age and stage is, they have value. And that really stuck with me at the time. And then moving forward, when I had some personal health issues that stumped the doctors, and eventually that led to me meeting a naturopath. And he was the first person that said, your discomfort will not go away as long as you are this angry. And that was the first time anybody had put physical ailments with emotional approach to anything. And so I was so curious about that and also very frustrated. Like, I don't think I'm angry, but it was definitely affecting my body. And so going through that process and seeing the changes and the well being that I experienced through that, so grateful that he said those hard words to me, but it took me down that course so that I became a naturopath myself. And for years, I had a practice with the staff, and my dissertation was on the relationship between emotional health and physical well being. And that's why I know through my research and studies that you cannot make these decisions. And sometimes when you're the mom with young children or you're the lady who doesn't know the finances and the mortgage payments have to be paid, the insurance and the HOA dues still come due. Even if you're going through all this stuff, you can't think about those things. And so just to have somebody to vent with, to talk to that has no agenda, I have no ties to the outcome of the case, but just having a listening ear. I went on to seminary and I became a life coach. My whole work life has been around helping people go through stressful times. It's just a season. If we can shorten that season, then you can get back to living the life that you're designed to live and to live it with purpose and joy. That's what I hope for you. That's what I've brought forward into all of the work that I've ever done into this season. And that's what I offer to my clients.
I think that's absolutely fantastic. And it truly is a differentiator in this space because a lot of times you're dealing, and I'm just gonna be frank, attorneys deal with the process.
Mhm,
Attorneys are there to deal with the process
mhm.
and attorneys do the legal side of things, but there's so much more to this whole overarching season in your life than just the legal side of probate.
Because the work has evolved from just probate into other parts of that season as well. Sometimes the probate case can be closed, but people that have property that needs to be sold or they need to move or they still need to, go through all the things, just because probate is closed doesn't mean all that stuff is done. And so they oftentimes have these delayed things. And when I go back and update the attorney on that. They're like, I had no idea she needed surgery. Well, of course they don't, because their probate ended. They moved us. Nothing against the attorney. They're on to the next case. But this person's life continues. And the hardships that they're facing don't stop just because they're in probate and they have this house full of stuff that they have to deal with. And then before probate, when mom is getting out of rehab and the daughter is trying to figure out, how do I pay for her care? Does she need assisted care? Can we afford to have someone come into the house? Referrals are coming to me to help with those situations. So even outside of the probate space, but it's still in that end of life decisions that have to be made.
Transitions are tough. We all know it. You're human and you've
Yeah.
got a lot of experience, and as do I. I have a background in medicine as well. And so we know that humans do not like change. We are resistant to change. And this is a
Mhm.
huge change. So that transition is a huge change for everybody involved.
Yeah.
And so you're removing those stressors and you're taking all those little things that add up and just taking them away to make the transition and that change a little bit easier on everyone involved.
Yeah.
So we do have a few minutes left. What would you know, I'm a coach and that I am a coach at heart. So if we didn't have some sort of an action step, you are not getting off this show without giving one.
Mhm. Mhm.
So what is one thing you can share with the listeners today that can help them on this path to get organized, to streamline their probate case, or to stay balanced, have that work-life balance as they go through the process?
Great question. I would say the first thing, I'm a teacher at heart. And so I would say you got to get educated. You need to find out what you don't know, see where the gaps are. What do you know and what do you not know? Surround yourself with people that have some answers and some resources. So go to workshops. There's not a lot of books to read. Be careful about your sources because probate is different in every state. They have different terms, they have different ways of doing it. Some require attorneys, some do not. Texas, we do. And so you want to make sure the state that you're talking about, if you're looking at books, make sure the published date is current. If you're looking at information online, make sure that it's current, but also state specific. If you're getting information from a friend, take it with a grain of salt. Make sure that you've got correct information for you. And I would say that even within the attorney sphere, not all probate attorneys do the same thing. You have some that will go to court and argue for you if there's disgruntled people in your family, they will litigate for you. There's other attorneys that don't do that at all. So you need to figure out if you're a blended family, there's extra problems with that. There's extra issues that come up with that. You want to get the right source from the qualified person. You will save a ton of money by getting it done right and not having the headaches down the road. So get educated, then make a plan. Think about what do you want? And that's what's so great, I think, about wills and trusts is it gives your voice something to go on. It gives the court something to go on. And without that, you have no say whatsoever. So if something is important to you, this is your time to put that into writing, and then people will carry that out. Attend those workshops, continue to learn, update your wills and your trusts as necessary, and go from there. But that's a good start.
Awesome. And I know you have a ton of resources, free resources on your
Mhm.
website. So if somebody's listening to this and not watching or not pulling up the show notes, where can they go? Like, where can they go to get some of those free resources so that they have that checklist? They have that idea of, okay, yeah, I know this, and this, but I need to educate on these others.
Right. So my website is willowwoodsolutions.com. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, but the resources are more on my website. And then, of course, the podcast, the Probate Podcast, is here, another resource for you. Also, have a community on Facebook where you can go, the Houston Probate Support Group. And if you're not in the Houston or the Texas area, because I'm in this nationwide group, I have resources and am connected to people outside of here too. So give me a call. I want to be a resource for you, regardless of where you are.
Sherri, you absolutely are that. You are a tremendous resource. You are one of the most giver centric, the most value centric individuals that I know and at utmost professional. So if you are listening to this, watching this, Sherri is definitely your go to for all things. And if she is not the person for you, she knows the person for you. She's an expert at building key relationships and really does keep to the core values and that integrity. Thank you so much for everything that you've shared with us today. Is there anything else that you really want to share with the listeners today?
We've said a lot, and I think what's important to me that I would want any listener to walk away with is that you as an individual matter, and you're not annoying, and you're not asking too much. And it's okay if you feel overwhelmed. It's okay if you feel like you can't handle this. And it's important for you to know that you don't have to do it alone. And I think that's my big drive is for people to know that they're seen and they're heard and they're valued. And that's what I'm here for, is to encourage and to affirm and to comfort. Be
And you
encouraged.
heard it here first on the first episode of Sherri's Probate Podcast. Sherri is definitely that resource. And my biggest takeaway, Sherri, from this interview was huge. And that's something that we share in the entrepreneur world as well. And that's you don't have to do this alone. It's one of our human nature things to kind of withdraw and to think we're the only person on earth that's having this. But the reality is when we have the right people in our corner, you
Right.
in the probate process, me in the
Right.
entrepreneurial space, right? We have the right people in our corner to support us through the process. Amazing things happen. It relieves our stress. It helps us to have the outcome. We make the right decision the first time. We save time, money, efforts, all of the things, and we can actually mitigate a lot of the negative aspects of no matter what transition or what situation you find. So thank you so much for everything you bring. And it has been an absolute pleasure to interview you today.
Thank you, Jen. I appreciate this so much. That's all I have for now. New episodes of the Probate Podcast will come out on Thursdays. I also have a free public support group called Houston Probate Support on Facebook. You don't have to live in the greater Houston area to be a member, but I'd love to have you join me there. I'd love to have you join me on any of these platforms, including this podcast, and I'll share the links of where you can find me in the show notes below. I'm looking forward to us connecting. See you next time, and remember, you matter.